Hmm. It's interesting when you're a historian because you bury yourself in the period of the past you're researching and ignore everything that's happening around you. So I don't know if that's a good approach to be a historian or a bad approach, but it's always been my approach. So when I was studying 1950s France, male writers, I didn't go to the cinema or read any contemporary literature in the 1990s. I read French newspapers from the 1950s. So that makes it a difficult question to answer. I think that clearly the evolution of those stereotypes is maybe slower than we think. So obviously there have been very important works, and the graphic novel and adult comics, whatever we call them, from the 1980s and, well, really from the 1970s onwards, have given a much bigger place to women's stories. So obviously Bechdel's work and Marianne Satrapi, but then, you know, creative people of whatever gender label anybody wants to declare are producing, you know, thousands of interesting things from the ground up. So in a way, I think there's more, you know, clearly there is a different space, and clearly there's a completely different value system today to the 1960s. But there are still problems and there are still stereotypes.
Well, yesterday night we were discussing Julie Doucet, who is not at all a superhero. It's autobiographical fiction, if you want. Two things. First of all, I'm very much surprised by the fact that there is now a kind of a hype of female superhero characters, and I think it's a very, let's say, from a gender point of view, a dangerous thing, in the sense that from the very moment that you are in that superhero environment, it's extremely difficult to reframe, to rethink certain sexist stereotypes. So Catwoman and once again, this is a personal point of view. I don't think it's the best way to, if you want to empower and to increase female agency, you should do it in a different way. But I'm not a specialist of these things at all. And the other remark I would like to make, and I briefly mentioned it a couple of before the interview, I think there are other and more stimulating and rewarding female role models, since that is actually what these people are looking for. I gave the example of Musidora, the famous French, well, she is mainly known as let's say, the most sexy movie star of the 1910s. In the Feuillade serials. But actually, she was not just a movie star, she was a writer, a script writer. She wrote poetry, she wrote novels, she produced movies. A lot of these movies have been lost. But for me, being a role model, and Jane Fonda could be a good role model, the way in which, let's say, Jane Fonda moved away from, let's say, the be quiet and shut up thing to more politically oriented stances, is, I think, the way it should go if you want, let's say, to increase female agency and things like that. And hence my, let's say, my reluctance to believe that it suffices to introduce female and strong female superhero characters to change gender relations.